The Lassie Talks podcast.
Hi, I'm Yvonne.
And I'm Robert.
And welcome to Lassie Talks podcast, where we talk about how to build a better bond with your dog. And this episode is going to talk about car journeys.
Yeah, and it would be good for me to give some tips on car sickness, which some dogs suffer from.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm going to talk about how we can actually get our dogs into a car. Now, obviously, when they're puppies, we're lifting, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah. Because just going back to your side of the things, you don't want bones that are hurt by jumping in and jumping out.
Yes. I mean, the different places in the car to put your dog. Often small dogs will ride on a seat, and we can talk about safety harnesses and things for that. Larger dogs often go in the boot or the back of the estate car, or as it is these days, the SUV. Now, the thing about SUVs that a lot of people have, they're great, but they are quite high off the ground. So young dogs jumping up and down a large height, not only is it difficult for them, but also it's a potential for injury. So in those cases, you might like to consider buying one of these foldable, not disposable,
Ramps.
The ramp.
Yeah,
and then
foldable
you've
ramp.
got to teach your dog to do a walk on the ramp.
Which is scary for a puppy.
Which can be scary. Yeah.
Thinking about, Joy, our large dog, we actually have a ramp for her to get into the car. Well, our old car.
Their old car, where there was a little bit of height, but we now have selected an MPV, people carrier car, where she can step in the side door and there isn't much of a step.
Yeah. You might have heard our dogs. We've actually put them outside, and they're in their runs. They've got 3 separate runs outside, so that they can relax. But also, we're saying car so many times, and I think it's so unfair because all our dogs get very excited with the word car.
Oh, why do you think that is?
Well, they have a good association with the car because we go out for trips. So we sometimes spell it, C-A-R, so that they don't know. And now they've learnt to spell.
Yeah, they have.
So it's really funny. And, we'll talk about how clever dogs are about picking up language. But today we want to, relax and talk about cars a lot without them saying, "Oh, we're going out." So we're having a dog-free podcast today, and we want to think while we're talking about cars. You see how many times I've said it? They would be really excited by now.
They certainly would be.
Yeah,
they'll be at the door saying,
"Let's
go,
let's go." And that's what you want. You want your dog to have a good association with a car, but not every dog is. Some dogs are really quite terrified about getting into a car.
Yes, and as I will talk about later, some of that can be the fact that the car and the car journey creates nausea, and that's an unpleasant feeling.
Yeah, and it's like young children when they go trips out, and you'll find that some young children get car sickness, and we used to give our clients we still give our clients lots of tips about how to overcome that fear of the car. I used to say to them that to start off with, I'd have them going into the car for short periods of time when the car isn't moving.
To make associations perhaps with a pleasant experience, perhaps some food or something in the car.
Sometimes, I'd say to a client that's really got a dog that has got problems, just, don't go out for a while with your dog in the car. Let's feed your dog its dinners in the car.
In the back of the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just open the boot or rear hatch or whatever you want to call it. Get the dog to jump in or go
lift,
up the
ramp.
Yeah. Whatever's appropriate for the height and size of the dog, and then the dog can just sit there.
Yeah, and have its dinner.
Have its dinner.
And you could sit in with it.
Yeah.
So
even before you start the engine up.
yeah, I mean, don't just slam the door and go in the house and leave them. You've got to, small baby steps. You're overcoming a phobia to the car, which can cause this, travel sickness, so that you actually get them to just sit and enjoy being cuddled with you, sitting in the back with them in the boot, perhaps, and feeding them in the,
You can have a little picnic.
have a picnic with them out in the car, and just get them to associate everything good about the car. Okay. And then we go out for small trips.
Yeah, just round the block, so to speak.
We don't get them out. Why don't we get them out?
Tell me.
Okay. So just it is, classic to have dogs going vroom, 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 vroom. When they get to a place they recognize you've gone out to a trip to the park, say, and it's a regular trip, so that they actually think, oh, I'm excited, I've got to the park, I know good things happen. Now, what we want to do is to stop that by actually going for a trip and not getting out. So I do lots of we do this still, don't we? We say,
do, yeah.
We're going, out to, we went for our vaccination.
Indeed, yes,
and,
yes. And obviously the dogs couldn't go in for theirs.
No, and what you did was, we all set off in the car, and we said, well, this is a good opportunity to take the dogs out just for a trip in the car.
And they enjoyed it.
And they just like a trip in the car. And you don't get them out. Then you don't get this excited barking when you've got to the place you want to get to. So
you mix it up.
You mix it up. You become unpredictable. Sometimes we'll just go for a trip, and other times we will actually get out for a walk. But never get them out for a walk if they're barking their heads off, because you're actually just rewarding all that
better to
so, well, sorry,
that's
guys.
It. Just drive around and
you don't get to go for a
until
walk.
it calm down and then go.
Yeah.
Wait till that calmness arrives.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. And if you've got, like us, multiple dogs, do it with one single dog, because one dog will kick off the other dog, and you train them individually, and then you can put them all together. Because if one dog decides that they're going to bark because they've got to the known walk, it'll kick all your other dogs off as well. So, it's all done separately. But most of us, perhaps a lot of our audience or indeed our listeners will have this one single puppy that they want to train, and they want them to get used to the car. We talked about a ramp, but please don't just expect your dogs to go up a scary ramp to start off with. Lay the ramp on the floor and do a treat trail along the ramp. Then raise it up a little bit and a little bit.
So you would practice in the house or in the garden before you'd attempt to do this with the car.
Yeah, up against the car. Yeah. It's very useful to, especially if your dog is going to be a big dog like Joy. You don't want them to have,
particularly as a young dog.
Yeah, and if they keep leaping out of a high car, they are going to cause themselves injury. But, so we've got to the point that they like the car, and they will get into the car. So what about staying in the car for any length of time?
Well, we've got to say here, how dangerous leaving a dog unattended in a car can be in any sort of weather where the sun might be shining, because cars heat up remarkably quickly, and heat stroke is fatal for dogs. Do not leave your dog in a hot car. Just winding a bit of window down is not sufficient. If you need to leave your dog for any length of time, even just a few minutes, you must have precautions. We have taken dogs to training classes and things like that. Find some shade. We've used reflective silver blankets to cover over the top of the car to reflect some of the heat away.
Yeah,
We've
and I also
increased ventilation by opening the boot, and if you need to secure the boot, you can buy quite inexpensively these little locking bars, so that you get some ventilation at a lower level, then of course windows and whatever you can open at the top to allow circulation of air. But the important thing is, do not leave your dogs unattended. You need to be in attendance.
Yeah, I also
I cannot stress this
yeah,
too
we
much.
can't. And
Overheating dogs, as you hear stories in the
oh,
summer,
it's horrible.
dreadful. I thought.
They-
Do not leave
you
your dogs
basically cook your
unattended.
dog.
Absolutely.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And I did actually, when we parked next to a lady in one of our dog training courses that we went on, because we've studied with loads of really eminent trainers, haven't we, over the years? And she actually had a fan that she plugged into her.
Yep.
What is that? The cigarette lighter.
Yep.
We've still got them, but it's hopefully nobody smokes these days. But it's still there in your car where you plug something in and it drives a little motor of some sort. I thought that was brilliant, and
there are all sorts of gadgets, and they can be run over cooling things, and there are blankets that can be cooled off, so you can put your dog in blankets, and there's a lot out there, fairly inexpensive, well worth investing if your dog is going to be tripping out with you in the summer on holidays, things like that. Do go prepared, and of course, don't forget to bring a dog bowl and some water.
Yeah, and thinking about going out and about, we've got to think about the safety. God forbid, should we have
accidents do happen,
have a crash.
So now, a dog that can fly, if your car comes to a sudden halt in an accident from one end to the other, is not only dangerous to the dog, but it's dangerous to the occupants of the car. So if your dog is going to travel on a seat, then do invest in a good harness that will attach to the seatbelt and be as secure as a human strapped to a seatbelt.
Yeah, and if you've got the dog in the back, and there's loads of things that you can get for an estate car that that creates like a crate. But if you do have, God forbid, an accident, there are actually you can get fitted to your car one of these crates that actually put up with an impact, and they protect the dog from impact.
If there's no room for the cage or crate to move there, if you're back-ended or whatever the term is, then you need something that is resistant to being crushed.
Yeah.
And also do remember that if you are in the unfortunate situation of an accident, you must be able to get to your dog, and if the dog is injured, obviously be very careful on how the dog is handled. Perhaps we can cover that on a podcast about first aid sometime.
Yes, absolutely, because a dog that actually is in pain might bite. And
yes, either yourselves if you're trying to rescue it, or if you're the fire brigade or whoever comes to rescue you, you need to be able to get to your dog and get it out safely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've covered all the subjects, haven't we? That
long journeys.
Yes. Now I haven't thought about
how often do you stop?
That's a good question. I mean, medically, that they don't need to go for a pee as much as we do.
No, adult dogs can last a few hours travel. Younger dogs, obviously, puppies need to be released. Rule of thumb, perhaps every hour. Adult dogs maybe every 2 hours. We all need to stop. We've seen the signs on the motorway,
tiredness kills.
Tiredness kills. But it also gives you, the opportunity for your dog to have a stretch of its legs and to have a drink and to relieve itself if needs to be. So don't forget, dogs need stops just as we do.
Yeah, and just be aware that you need to think about not rushing the dog, because if they're on a strange ground, they're not likely to, just, especially bitches for some reason, they don't particularly like to,
Yeah, well, some dogs can be very particular as to what surface they need to relieve themselves on.
Yeah.
Very often male dogs, it's not a problem, but as you say, bitches, it can be, the right bit of grass or whatever
Yeah.
that
So
they
give
do.
them a bit
So
of time.
give a bit of time. Don't rush it.
Yeah. And I suppose this as well, I teach the cue, hurry up and be quick.
Hurry up and be quick.
Yeah. There's I know some owners go around going, wee, 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 it's quite embarrassing, so I go, hurry up, be quick to my dogs. And the hurry up is a wee and be quick is poo. And I train that at home from puppies, but, having the dogs be able to go for wee and poo on cue is so useful when going on a car journey. And then you can, stop and say, hurry up, be quick, and especially with a bitch that, as you say, has, problems with surfaces. You want them to be relaxed. And if they've done this on cue and you've rewarded them, this starts from a puppy. You go out with your puppy to train them to potty.
Basic toilet training.
Yeah,
is it not?
Yep. From an early age. You take them out and you go, hurry up. And they do a wee, good, hurry up, well done, and give them a treat. And then, you often know when your dog has a poo. It tends to be after a meal. And then you go, be quick, because you know that that's going to happen. Oh, good, be quick. So it becomes,
An association.
Because that's how dogs learn, by association. Yep. So if you keep on saying these cues and you've got the timing and you get the treat, and then it makes going out and about so much easier than, having to wait for ages and ages because your dog,
Yeah, and as we've said before, if your dog does do a poo, make sure you've got some poo bags in your pocket.
Yeah. Well, for certainly, when I go, hurry
particularly in public places, stopping on the side of the motorway
it's
or something.
Worse than
it's
leaving a present behind.
Exactly.
For other people to step in. It's not, and do take the bag and dispose of it. There's nothing worse, and I've seen this I'm going to have a little rant now. Can I have a little rant?
You can have a little rant.
Yeah, me podcast.
Just quickly.
Rant. Yeah. I hate it when people pick up their dog poo and then hang it on a tree. What's that about?
No, I don't know.
I think
people are a bit crazy.
Sheer
sometimes.
laziness.
Yeah.
You can take it and put it in a bin. Why hang it in a tree? I mean, it's horrible. Why spoil our countryside? Okay, and on a service station, it isn't really countryside, but still, there's a nice bit of grass often and
There's
a nice tree.
There's always a bin somewhere nearby.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, come on, guys. Let's bin
clean the place up.
Yeah, let's bin it. Let's not leave our poo, for poor people to step in, or our bags hanging up in a tree for some poor chap that's, being employed to clear up after you. It's not nice for them. Okay, litter. Again, I'll go on a litter rant. Can I go on a litter rant?
You can go on a litter rant.
Yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but I hate litter. That's one of my big deals. Now, when I worked for the RSPCA, one of my talks I gave to the children was about litter. Picking up
how
litter.
Dangerous that is to wildlife.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is to your dog. So when you get out in the car, be aware of the litter that's at a service station on a journey.
Yes, and talking about being aware, there's another habit that I see that I don't like to see is where people let their dogs hang their heads out while they're travelling at speed out of the window.
Oh, yeah, you used to get eye problems with that.
A lot of eye problems from that.
Yeah.
So, I know it's in some of the adverts on the telly,
yeah.
but it's not a good thing to have a dog. And, of course, it's dangerous because if you do pass something, a branch or something out of the hedgerow or another passing vehicle, it can obviously cause serious injuries. You wouldn't want your children to do it. Don't let your dog do it. It looks fun. They seem to enjoy it because they like the rush of the air and they like the scents, I guess. But it's safety-wise, not a good thing.
Yeah, and people think it'll help the dog with car sickness. But let's talk about other
Yeah.
methods of
Yeah, car
preventing
sickness. Car
your
sickness
health
can be
tip.
quite debilitating and can stop dogs enjoying travelling in the car, which can make maybe an issue with you. But for people that have cars, want to take their dogs out and about to special walks, go on holiday, these sorts of things, a dog that's constantly car sick is a big problem. And of course, it can become self-perpetuating. So the dog associates the car with feeling nauseous. So as soon as the dog's put in the car, you get a sort of Pavlovian reflex, and
And
you
it
get
salivates, doesn't it?
salivation
Yeah.
and nausea comes on. So if you are getting significant nausea that doesn't settle down with the tips that Yvonne's given you, I do suggest a trip to your vet to discuss it, because there are some excellent treatments now for controlling the nausea and the sickness and making the whole thing pleasant for the dog. Go to your vet, have a chat with them. They can provide you. And very often with these things, you've got the option of having a low dose over a period of time during which you have lots of small, short trips. Or if you're doing a long journey, you can have a big dose that will keep the dog secure for the whole journey, which, from somewhere to somewhere can be many hours in the summer. If you know your dog's not going to travel well, go and have a word with your vet.
Okay, well, if you want to know any more about car travel and car sickness, do look us up on www.lassietalks.com and listen further to our podcast. And don't forget, we're on Facebook too. And don't forget to connect with us and perhaps send in some of your questions. Thank you. See you next time.
See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Lassie Talks. If you would like to get in touch or have any questions, then please visit lassietalks.com or visit our Facebook and YouTube page. Every dog has a Lassie's heart. So remember, we need to make our homes the best place for our dogs to be. See you soon at the next episode of Lassie Talks. Lassie Talks was recorded and produced at Monkey Nut Audiobooks.